So I thought I'd share this with you guys. This is a CP3 Bosch common rail injection pump off of a, was it the LB7? It's like an 01, 02 Duramax. Pulled this off. Picked up a truck for my dad. Only 160 some thousand miles on the thing. And was driving it to work on the highway. And it just kind of shut off. And pouring fuel over the bell housing. And I was hoping it was some of these dry rotted lines. But turns out it's the injection pump. So I pulled it off the truck. And by the way, if anybody asks you to pull the injection pump off of their Duramax, you might as well just tell them to punch you as hard as they can right in the stomach, because I think that would be a better time than pulling this pump off of one of those trucks. There's so much wires and hard lines in the way, and you have to take off the hard line, you know, multiple places to get it out. And it's like there's these T's, and oh, it's a nightmare. Just don't do it. Just try to avoid it at all costs. I'm telling you that I'd just rather would have took a punch to the gut. But after removing the injection pump, there's these freeze plugs pushed out. It's hard to see here. But that's where the fuel is coming from. So I took this loose here. And pull this out. Come on. Not like I'm in a garage full of tools. There's that freeze plug. Alright. I had to grab a flashlight. So there's just damage to this. This will zoom. Anyhow, you can see it's all beat up. It's not even flat. It's really sharp. Got a bunch of damage to it. Get this light in there. You see there's just some metal shrapnel sitting right there. And that black thing you see in there is the kind of like a rotor. It doesn't spin, but it kind of orbits around in there. There's a crankshaft, and it just kind of moves this triangle in this kind of motion. And there's 3 pistons. And it looks like the spring had come out of, you're probably not going to be able to see it. Try zooming in. Maybe not. Yeah, it looks like the spring come out of that bore, and it's jammed up in there on top of the rotor, which is a really interesting failure mode. I mean, I don't know what would have caused that. And I never heard of anything like that happening, but I did do some searching online and found a few cases where even trucks that had lower mileage and were stock, supposedly, did that. And I think that's a very interesting failure mode. I don't know what would cause that. I don't know if there's a snap ring that holds the plunger up in the bore, and maybe that failed, or the truck must have sat a very long time, because the guy I bought it off of, an older gentleman, and the title, he's had the truck for 10 years, and I think he only put 20,000 miles on it or 30,000 miles on it. Obviously he didn't drive it very much, so I don't know if, you know, there's some rust in here and somehow that ate up those plungers and made them fall apart. That rotor went around and just kind of smacked everything and smashed the spring into the case of the other side, and you can see this freeze plug is loose and pushed out as well. So hopefully companies will still give me a core. Let me use this as a core, I should say. Gonna have to put a new one in it because that's not fixable. And just a very, always have these really strange failures when I'm not even doing anything. Just, I was on the cruise control on the highway and just kind of lost power and shut off and dumped fuel everywhere. I was hoping this case back here, the O-ring or something, had failed, or these hoses were really dry rotted, so I hoped one of those were bad. I just put a fuel filter on the truck and I bled all the air out of it really good just with a hand pump. So I don't think I messed anything up there. Put a Wix filter on it, and the filter that came out of it, the fuel looked good. I didn't see any water in the bottom of it or any dirt, anything like that, so pretty odd. And just a story, I'd bought a Dodge, like 260,000 miles on it, first gen, with the VP pump, or first gen. It's a 93, I think. And I drove it to Texas. I got to Baton Rouge. I was coming up a hill, and I just gave it a little more throttle and just kind of shut off. So I pulled over the side of the road and was hoping, once again, that there's a fuel everywhere, so I was hoping it was just the feed line. But here, and that injection pump's a little different, you're not familiar with it, but basically there's a distribution block on it, kind of like a distributor cap in a way, and it has 4 through bolts that go into the aluminum casing. Well, it had pulled or blown that head off the aluminum casing and pulled the threads right out of the body on all 4 bolts. And I called a few injection pump places, and none of them have heard of that happening. And it's, as far as I can tell, that truck was completely stock and original. It did have a lot of miles on it, but that's just a really weird failure mode. Anyhow, I'll be putting that back together, unfortunately. That's such a pain to get that pump out of a Duramax.